Good afternoon on what is a mild, grey and cloudy day. It is Monday the 8th of April and I'm in the read Nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a box to continue unboxing. And what I'm going to pull out of here is this, Mrs. Zigzag. So, when Betty Farmer married double agent Eddie Chapman, Agent Zigzag, she knew her life would never be ordinary. Yet even before her marriage to Eddie, her life involved in century bombs, serial killers, film roles and love affairs with flying aces. After marriage, she coped with Eddie's mysteries, his criminal activities, separations and personal traumas. Coming from her humble origins, Betty would in time own a big beauty business, a health farm and a castle on Ireland, become the friend and confidant of film stars and an African president, and the honoured guest of Middle Eastern royalty. In an age where women were still very much second class, she became a perfect example of what, in spite of everything, was possible. Much has been written about Eddie Chapman, films have been made, television programmes produced. Yet alongside Eddie, for most of his extraordinary life, was an equally extraordinary woman, Mrs. Zigzag. This book tells the story of the Chapmans' often fraught but ultimately loving relationship for the first time. So, let me see, Agent Zigzag, Mrs. Zigzag. By 2007, Ben McIntyre wrote and published a book called Agent Zigzag about Eddie Chapman, and there's a film adaptation of his story with Christopher Plummer, and the story's been told a few times in books, because what Eddie Chapman did was, before the war, he was a safecracker and confidence trickster, a con man, and he happened to be in prison at the time that the Germans invaded the Channel Islands. So he remained in prison. And, okay, it looked like he was going to remain in prison for the remainder of the war, although he didn't know how long it was going to be at the time. So what he did was he volunteered to be an agent for the Nazis, for the Germans, and he would spy on Britain. And they took him at his word eventually. Of course, they shouldn't have done, because after about a year's training, what he did was parachute back into England, and the first thing he did was, after landing, was walk into the nearest police station and say, "My name's Eddie Chapman. I'm a spy for the Germans, and I want to spy for my country, for Great Britain." And so it's an extraordinary tale of him trained to be a spy by the Germans, turning that training back upon the Germans and so on, and then living off it. It's sort of like as a sense of reputation, because every time he would get into trouble as a small-time crook, he would use his connections and his war career could kind of bail him out of trouble. And it's a fantastic story. If you've not read Agent Zigzag by Ben McIntyre, absolutely do so. But along the way, his wife Betty kind of got lost in the story, because Eddie Chapman's story is fantastic. Well, it is an amazing story. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, that's going to be interesting to see what it was like from her point of view. So essentially we have the extraordinary life of a secret agent's wife. In fact, a double secret agent, so contents page, and we've got a forward by Nigel West, who's a former MP but expert upon the espionage and the spy world, written some books and so on. Introduction, and basically explaining who they are, Betty and Eddie Chapman, and the prologue essentially explains the background to Eddie Chapman's life and his role as Agent Zigzag. And then we get into the main story. So it's a much slimmer book than Agent Zigzag, but got some actually really great photographs in here. So a couple of really nice shots of Betty herself in her younger days. And then essentially with their daughter and where they lived, and then Kilkere Castle where she later lived. It's an amazing life to go from the blitz of London to owning the castle eventually. And then there's Eddie Chapman and Betty on their wedding day. Essentially, a German newspaper showing Eddie being tied to a stake and awaiting a firing squad. That's kind of a setup thing. It's actually amazing. And then we've actually got a still from Triple Cross, the Eddie Chapman story starring Christopher Plummer as Eddie. There we go. That was made during the 50s, I think. 50s or 60s. Okay, and there's actually publicity shot of Eddie in an SS uniform. He was a member of the SS because essentially he was sort of trained as a spy, but he wasn't actually an active member. There's no evidence that he actually sort of like supported what they believed in. And then friends of the Chapmans, actor Burl Ives, and then even Richard Burton. So relatively short. It does deal with the chap. We've got this essentially to call it "My Home is an Irish Castle," and it comes to a close essentially with Eddie's last battle, presumably with illness, and then her reflections upon her life with and without Eddie over that time. And then we have footnotes, of course, acknowledgements, and an index, and then picture of Betty with the author Ronald L. Bonewitz. So I think that's a fantastic. If you have read Agent Zigzag, this is a fantastic corollary. If you've not read Agent Zigzag, you absolutely should, and then you should read this. I'm going to look forward to giving this a proper read. I'm actually planning to read it. My book club is planning an espionage strand at some point in the future, and I think that's going to be an excellent addition because I've already read Agent Zigzag, and that's one of my suggested books. So, Agent Zigzag by The Secret Agent of Extraordinary Life of a Secret Agent's Wife by Betty Chapman and Ronald L. Bonewitz. We're going to add that to my reading pile. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And, of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where we seem out here with a box, from which I will unbox a book or game or role-playing game or this, essentially a biography, which I will then talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook, and we'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.